Welcome to the Smile Sisters podcast, powered by the LA Dental Clinic. In each episode of the Smile Sisters, host Dr. Ozzy and Dr. Arazu Nasiri show you how you can transform and maintain your smile. The sisters explain everything you need to know about your mouth and why keeping it healthy is key to your overall health.
Hi guys, today we're going to talk about some cosmetic treatment, specifically bonding. Okay. People come in every day and ask us, what is it? How much does it cost? And there's a huge disparity in cost when you go from one practice to another when it comes to bonding. There's also a huge disparity in what it's called.
I think the name is the problem. We don't have a proper name for what we do or what other people do. We all call it bonding, but it's very different things.
Totally, yeah. So bonding just means bond is the way that these white fillings are sort of glued onto your tooth.
Right.
It's the procedure that is done to glue these things onto your teeth.
Right.
So you can bond on a white filling. You can bond on
a crown or a veneer.
Crown or a veneer. So when we call it bonding, really they're talking about fillings that are placed on the surface of your tooth for aesthetic reasons. Yeah. But the name kind of comes back from that root. But bonding, the composite fillings that are put on your teeth are also called composite veneers, resin veneers.
Yeah.
So there's
white fillings. Wait, let me just make a distinction between bonding and what used to be the way that fillings were placed, which was by mechanical retention. Mm-hmm. So before bonding, those silver fillings were basically just wedged into the teeth, and the teeth shape was done in a certain way that when the filling was dry, it wouldn't be able to come out anymore. So it would create these undercuts in the teeth. So it was just wedged in there. It wasn't actually bonded onto the tooth surface. It was just like packed in there, and then it would just get wedged in there. So that's where bonding started. It was like a whole other wave, another way to put fillings on teeth that was not based on the tooth shape and the shape of the filling interlocking, but rather actually working on the surface of the tooth itself and kind of like attaching the filling onto the actual tooth surface.
Yeah, so bonding is known as when filling material is layered on the surface of your teeth for cosmetic reasons, just to change the color or shape of your teeth. Okay? Mm-hmm. But it's also known as a resin veneer or a composite veneer. So composite is just the filling material that's white that's used. So we also use that in back teeth. Resin also represents the same thing.
Okay, so all these different terms are interchangeable.
They
resin,
can be used, yes.
Composite, white filling, bonding.
Yes. So the other thing to keep in mind is that the way that bonding is done on teeth can vary so much from practice to practice, from doctor to doctor, and also within the same doctor's toolkit, there's different ways to do it. And this is why the price can vary quite a bit.
Right.
On top of that, the material that's used, there is a huge range of these composite filling materials that have to do with color, but also with color stability. Like, is it going to like change color over time?
Right.
With finishability, polishability of the material, like, is it going to roughen over time and pick up staining? Mm-hmm. And with the strength of them as well.
Right.
How hard are they? So are they more likely kind of to wear down or to chip and break on you?
That's kind of like a huge question that people ask is, how long will this last? Mm-hmm. Will it discolor? How often do I have to get them changed?
Right. And that's why that question is not so simple to answer.
Right.
Because it has to do with so many factors. One of them being, what material is the dentist using? Now, when we do bonding here, and when we do the kind of bonding which is called layered bonding, okay, we will actually build the part that's on the inside of your gum, so the part that sits kind of behind your tooth.
Like towards the roof of your mouth.
Yes. So when you bite down, you would hit that area.
Right.
We use a harder composite for that layer.
Right.
But then the part that's on the surface,
the part that you can see.
The part that you can see, we use a softer composite. But the reason we do that is because that composite is more polishable. So it'll remain shiny longer and it won't pick up as much staining.
Right.
So we actually use different materials for the different parts in order to make it both strong and beautiful,
Right.
right? So imagine doing that. And so that's called a layered resin veneer or bonding technique.
Right.
And that takes a lot of time. When we're doing these, we're putting, to do one bonding on one tooth, we're doing 3 or 4 layers of material over the tooth.
Right. I mean, to do a full mouth of these is like a 6-7 hour deal.
Yes. And it's a multiple day deal
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So that is why it can become more costly, because
Right.
it actually takes a lot of time to do it and to do it well.
Yes.
Versus you can also get something called injection bonding, which is when we make a mold of your teeth, put it over your teeth, make a hole in it, and with a flowable composite, which is a sort of a more liquidy filling material,
Yeah.
we actually inject it into this mold.
Into the mold and give it that shape.
Yeah, and it layers over the tooth. It can be beautiful and it can last, but it'll last less time.
Right.
Because we're not doing the layer on the inside that's harder, and then the layer on the outside that is, more polishable.
Right.
And so again, that material, you can choose different levels of it for hardness versus aesthetics.
Yes.
But it's less costly because it takes less time. You're not doing 3 or 4 layers.
Yeah.
You're just injecting one
And
layer.
it's just
into
one
each.
material, so you have to make the decision of, is the hardness more important or is the polishability more important? Or do you pick something in between? Whereas when you layer it, you're putting the hard part where the bite is, the polishable part where the aesthetics are important. So
Yes.
you're not making a compromise, but it just takes a lot longer.
It takes longer, so it becomes more expensive.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is when you do the layered technique, you can make these teeth look much more realistic because our teeth have many layers. They're
Right.
like an onion,
They
they
are.
have so many layers. And they have a layer on the kind of biting edge of your tooth that's more see-through. Then there's some opacity, which is layers that like light doesn't shine through, that are in different shapes.
Right.
So when we're doing the layer technique, we're also layering a see-through layer first. Then we're putting these lobes on, which represent kind of the opaque part of your tooth. Then we're putting stains on. Then we're putting another layer on top of
Yeah.
that.
It's really like a work of art.
It is. It is like sculpting.
Yeah.
And to create those layers that light filters through at different amounts creates that natural effect
Right.
that looks like real teeth.
And
But-
what about the glow in the dark question? People ask about that. Like,
Okay.
oh, why is this gonna glow in the dark?
Some composites glow in the dark.
Yeah,
Yes. There's different ones that glow at different amounts.
right.
Part of the reason it can be helpful when you're trying to remove these things. And it's only people in their 20s that care about this because they go clubbing.
Only
and
the
they
people who are
see
still
these.
clubbing, old people like us, we don't care.
We don't know. We don't notice whether our teeth glow in the dark. So the young people are like, my teeth. So you can get composites that don't glow as much. Our natural teeth glow in the dark to a certain amount as
little
well.
bit,
So
yeah,
it's not
they
like
do.
they don't. But some of the composites do more than others.
Yeah.
So if you really care about that and you want to glow or not want to glow, I don't know which way you want to go.
There is a range of glowability.
But you can have that conversation with your dentist, and you can look that up too to see. We can test it out, which would be kind of fun.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the other extreme, which is when, for example, you have like the little notches at the edges of your teeth and you just put one layer of composite. That's also called bonding, but that's going to be a lot less costly because you're just filling in a little notch.
At the biting edge of your teeth.
No, not at the biting edge, like by the gum line. You know how there's people get the recession or the,
Oh, sure.
abfractions.
I mean, those things are often related to how your bite is and whether you're clenching and bruxing or grinding
But that's
your
also
teeth.
called bonding, is what I'm saying.
Sure.
So it's just like that's a lot less involved of a procedure to just fill that little notch.
Yes, it is.
And insurance typically can pick the cost of that up too.
Yeah, insurance sometimes covers those. Sometimes they don't,
Yeah.
depending on whether it shows up on an X-ray or not.
Right.
Usually, and yeah, again, bonding has to do with how the material is glued onto your tooth, not really representing of what's actually being done. Whether it's, a veneer or just a filling on the side of your tooth.
Right.
That can all be called bonding.
Yeah.
But you have to understand where it's at. But what I wanted to get at is the price of doing the resin veneers or composite veneers on your teeth can vary based on the skill of your doctor, what material they're using, what technique they're using, whether they're injecting it or layering in different layers.
Right.
So when we're comparing cost from practice to practice, or even comparing the cost of a composite or resin veneer versus a porcelain veneer,
Yes.
the cost for a resin veneer that's layered in several layers takes the doctor, 8 hours or a couple of days to do, can be equal to, let's say, porcelain.
Yeah.
And when it's done in that way, where it's harder on the inside and you're using highly polishable material, it can last a super long time as well.
Yeah.
So typically for the injection bonding that is done, we say, it might last you like 5 to 7 years. But if you're doing this layered technique where you're using a stronger material on the inside and doing all of these things, you can get 10, 15 years plus out of these. And so the price that you're paying, you want to consider that,
Yeah.
and not just consider price from practice to practice.
Right. So just like everything else, do your research, find a good provider.
Yes.
And bonding can be many things. Hope that was useful. Please check us out at LA Dental Clinic if you have any other questions.
Thank you.
Okay.
See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Smile Sisters. If you found this episode helpful, subscribe and leave us a review. To book a free consultation, go to ladentalclinic.com.